Thank you, Acting Speaker. And the timing couldn't have been better for me to make my contribution on the Inquiries Amendment, the Yoorook Justice Commission Records and Other Matters Bill. I've actually just walked out of a meeting with Benju from Clontarf, and I spoke about the Clontarf Foundation earlier today and what amazing work that they do through closing the gap. And this is something that I speak often about with our huge First Nations population, and one that I'm heavily involved in through the northwest of this state. And when I hear people talk about, so I get first-hand accounts from all sides of this, and there are many sides, but when there is, when I ultimately, because I can listen to both sides, and those that go, no, hang on, we do want to walk together, we do want to walk side by side, we do want to close the gap, we don't want to create division, and then we get called racist for saying we don't want to create division, that's an issue. Now, particularly for us in Mildura, and like I said, I'm heavily involved in community in Mildura and particularly in Robinvale, and I have been doing a lot of work with Clontarf, which this government has neglected for the past 10 years. 14 years in fact, in 2010, the coalition government started to part fund the Clontarf academies in this state to the tune of around $500,000 in 2010. Guess how much that's increased, Acting Speaker? Not 1 cent. Not 1 cent. And yet, the statistics don't lie. Guess what the incarceration rate is for Clontarf boys? 0. 0. If we want to talk about closing the gap, let's talk about programs that work. And again, the Yoorook Justice Commission and truth-telling, that's great, and we all want that, but we want to walk together. And when you have got a government that is not listening to things like the Clontarf Foundation, who have stats, 14 years, they have been borrowing and begging from this government for increased funding to keep providing for Aboriginal boys in this state, and they keep going begging to the point where now they look like they're going to have to close the Warrnambool academies. So there's 90 boys that could have positive outcomes that now won't have an academy down there if this government steps up. So if we're going to talk about closing the gap and truth-telling and all of the... Let's tell the truth. The government wants it one way, they want it their way, they're not willing to listen to anybody else. And you know why they won't fund the Clontarf Foundation? Because it was something that the coalition started to fund. That was our idea. So the Labor government don't want anything to do with it, do they? Because $540,000 in 2010 was their funding. Today, in 2024, it's still $540,000, which now puts them behind the 8 ball. It costs $7,500 per student to go through the Clontarf Academy, and it keeps them engaged in schools. Their outcomes are remarkable, with positive male role models that actually bring them to school, keep them engaged in school, get them driver's licences. They have corporate partnerships with things like Bunnings, Wesfarmers, so they're in employment. Their incarceration, they are just incredible. And now to get to a point where they look like they're going to have to close not 1 but 2 academies is absolutely insane. And then the hypocrisy that comes out from across the other side saying they want to close the gap, but they won't even look at something that the coalition have funded, is absolutely disgusting. And then because we want to walk side by side as one without being called a racist is disgusting, and I'm disgusted. When I am talking to all sides of our community through the Mallee, and there has been things up there that have caused horrific division to the point now where I can't engage with some parts of the Mallee farming community because some of their, Lake Tyrrell is a really good one, really good example. Mallee Rally ran there for 40 years And yes, we know that it is such a culturally significant site. We know that. It should be protected. There are parts around the lake that absolutely need to be protected. There's mirrans around there and all sorts of stuff. But to close it down and forbid access to anyone, there is a thirst to learn about things like the stories that have come out from Yoorook Justice Commission. There's a thirst for knowledge and education. We want to learn. We don't want to be closed out. The farmers down there that have properties surrounding the lake, they don't want to be closed out. They want to learn so they can too help preserve this history. Because I don't know if you know this, and clearly the government doesn't know this, but you know who the biggest conservationists in this country are? Farmers. Because the land and everything that it holds is their livelihood. It's their family's livelihood, and it has been for generations. They want to know about what was there beforehand, and of course they want to protect it. But you know what doesn't allow that is when they get shut out, when there is secrecy. Educate us. There is opportunities here to teach, to open archives, especially in a place like Sea Lake, where you've got a tourism sector because of Instagram. It's been created out of nothing, #SkyMirror, and it's beautiful. There's water in it at the moment. But it has created a tourism industry, and unfortunately, there is opportunity there. So to what end do we close out part of the community? That's our biggest issue here, is that one rule for one part, another rule for another part. We want to walk together. We want to learn so that we can grow together. In places like Sea Lake, and I know the member for Preston enjoys me telling stories about Sea Lake, there could be art galleries there. There's tours out, go on tours around the lake, explore the mirrans and the culturally significant places around the lake. So many opportunities, so many social enterprise opportunities. But it's just been closed out, and it has created division to the point where the community now, any time you bring it up, they really get defensive about it. And that's so sad. It really is. It's heartbreaking. But then you've got, like I said, you've got organisations like the Clontarf Academy who are enabling boys that grow, and the STARS program as well, and I'll be at the STARS program in Mildura on Monday night, in fact, at their awards night. These programs that are enabling our First Nations young people to want to explore and invest and be entrepreneurial and set up their own businesses and take advantage of opportunities like this that are being neglected by the government. So you can't preach to us that we don't, that we're racist because we want one rule for everyone, we want one Victoria, we want to walk together, we want to close the gap, and then pick and choose what you're actually going to do. Because that kind of stuff is hypocrisy, and that is frustrating, and that's why we have division in our communities. And that is exactly why we have opposed this bill, because we want, we want to hear truth-telling, great. We want to acknowledge country. We want all of this, but we don't want one rule for one group of people and one rule for another. That creates division. When you are embedded in communities and you are hearing all sides of it, it creates division, and that division is heartbreaking, and that's what we don't want. And that is why communities are also scared to speak up, because they get branded as being racist. It's simply not true. It's simply offensive. It is not true. What we want is one united community, not division. And to say that is not racist. And anyone that says it is disgusting. Thank you.